Welcome to Curate and Upgrade. My name is Mike Wixon, and I get to hang out with a real, genuine hypnotist. His name is Jonathan Mann, and there he is right there. Hey, buddy.
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
Don't forget, I'm doing great things. Don't forget, Jonathan, we've done a lot of these shows before.
That's right.
I don't want you to forget that. Well, I guess I'm just pointing that out to the listeners. Many great episodes leading up to this one. And by the way, they all seem to link one to the other like the rungs of a ladder as you make your way to the top. This is all really good life-enhancing advice. And in some ways, life-rescuing.
That's right.
Hypnotism isn't what you think it is. Go back, subscribe to the podcast, go back to previous ones, find out more about what Jonathan's up to, and I think you'll appreciate it. Every episode is meant to give you something to take away for your day. What are we talking about today?
So today we are talking about content free. Content free. So what does that even mean? It's not that we're not talking about anything. And in this context, it's kind of content free personal development, I'd say.
What does this mean?
What does it mean? So, have you ever found that you changed differently, changed how you feel about a situation without having to talk about it?
Maybe. I think so.
Yeah. So, oftentimes when we think about like kind of going to see a therapist or going to get help, it's like, okay, we got to talk about our problem and kind of go through all the different like little details and examine it and all of that stuff. And one of the really great things about hypnosis and what I've come to learn is that you can do all that and feel differently about that situation or whatever you were talking about or thinking about wanting to talk about without having to actually talk about it. Now, let's break it down a little bit. When you talk about a situation, sometimes if you're complaining about something, you might find that some people, they talk about it and they're able to get it off their chest and let it go. And others, you might find that the situation just keeps coming up over and over again. And the more that you do that, just like in the last episode, we were talking about kind of wearing down those grooves, you're accessing these stories that are just they're just ingraining themselves in you more and more.
Mm-hmm.
So
rather than taking these details to the end, resurfacing them, adding life and color and audio in your mind to them, there's a different route?
Absolutely. So just like that, I think this is beginning to link some of the earlier stuff that we were talking about up until this point. So talking about like changing feelings and your outlook on a certain situation, you're looking at changing some of those things. You're talking about like these negative things. You're adding like music and sound and color into them. Just like we were saying, I think it was the second episode where you're draining the color out of these negative situations, right? If I'm talking to you and you have something on your mind and you can think of it like a picture, you can freeze it at that moment of like peak annoyance or peak badness,
right?
Which is an actual word. It's not. But if you can freeze it at that point and look at that picture, if it's something that you're accessing all the time, you might find that it's vivid, it's all around you, all of these things. And if you started to shrink it down and take the color out of it and push it far away, that's one way that you can change how you're feeling without having to actually talk about anything. There are a lot of other different ways in hypnosis where you can access this type of change content free. And that's often how I work with clients when I'm speaking with people. I don't like, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist or anything like that. I just talk to people, listen to them, and then just give them some suggestions that may be helpful for them. And they find that they feel better afterwards.
Let me see if I got this right. So now I have this annoyance and it's bubbling up. So what I need to do is take it off the boil by taking the color out of it, the importance out of it.
That's right.
Shrinking the size of it, if you can imagine that in your mind, Minority Report style into a smaller window that isn't visible, but maybe over here to the left, a little bit out of my main view.
Yeah.
Well, everything else in life comes into full focus again, which is meant to be more important.
That's right. Exactly. And that's super interesting that you bring up a situation that's on full boil and having to take it off of the boiler. That is just how our brains work with stories and metaphor. So I'm not sure if you knew this about your brain and everybody else's brains, but the brain is a metaphorical machine. Basically, everything that we do, we look at in terms of stories. So in this thing, to think about how you got this situation that's boiling over, that's bubbling up, that's kind of overflowing because it's got all this heat added into it. This is just how our brains work. And it's fascinating that you can actually explore metaphor and change metaphor so that you change your life and change your outlook on whatever the situation is. And there's a protocol that I use called mindscaping that was taught to me by my teacher and mentor, Mike Mandel.
Ooh, yes.
Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy. And this protocol that he came up with is basically exploring someone's metaphor to elicit change. And it sounds kind of wild. And if you want to know how wild it truly is, reach out to me because I would love to hear from you, work with you. And this is basically, you can do this with anything. You can do it with like situations that you're not feeling good about, that you want to feel differently about, problems that you're encountering. I've used it with business success as well. So just feeling how to be more creative even, or just do something better. It's such a flexible technique, and it's just one of the many tools that I've kind of put together in my toolbox and how I like to work with clients. It's just really being able to work in this content-free manner because, it's important to have someone to talk to be able to express yourself. But in a context of where you want to just feel differently, feel better, there are other ways of doing it, getting at the root of the problem super quick.
I'm all about therapy. I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you talk, the more they make.
Yeah.
And so small changes in life can make you feel better about dealing with the bigger things in life that maybe you're talking endlessly with your therapist about.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
This might be a great way to clean up some of that mess around it.
For sure. And look, this is not there's a place for therapists. There's a place for therapy. It's great to talk about all of that. And if you're looking for something in addition to that, you're just like, there's this thing that I've been struggling with and whatever is not helping.
If I could just get that out of the way, I could focus better on what my therapist is saying, for God's sake.
Yeah,
right?
It's like getting therapy to go to therapy.
Well, I think that is something that you take from therapy as well, is tool sets for coping and tool sets for growing. And
exactly.
This is a tool set.
Exactly. And this is just another part of experience, tools that you could add to your toolbox. The more tools that you have, the more tools that you can reach for. If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right?
Exactly.
So it's just really important to kind of understand that there's a place for everything. And it's not that I'm not here to tell you that this is the way to go. You have to do this, and this is the only way. Because how realistic is that? It's not. However, the things that I do through hypnosis and just kind of working one-on-one with people, there's something that I find that I can often add to someone's experience so that they can move forward with whatever else they're doing. And I think that's really powerful.
Hypnotism isn't what you thought it was, is it? It's improving your life already. Subscribe to this podcast. It's Curate and Upgrade. And Jonathan Nan, if people wanted to reach out to you, maybe book a session with you, find out more about what they could do with their brain, where would they do that?
So you can find me on Facebook at Curate and Upgrade. Follow me on Instagram to see what I'm doing on at Curate and Upgrade as well. And of course, podcast listeners, curateandupgrade.ca/pod offer. You'll have all the information that you need there.
You got something special for the listeners?
Always something special.
Oh man, this has been something special. We'll catch you next time here on Curate and Upgrade. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.